knew it would be a success story that for some reason the universe / my idiocy tried to make it harder.
Within 2 songs of us starting, well over 1,000 people. Well over 1,000. And
like it proves that if you want something enough, like it's the Richard Branson quote always sticks with me. No, if you get an amazing opportunity, say yes and find out how you'll do it later.
Yeah.
And then as I going back to what I said at the start, it proves that everything will be okay. That was the thing. That was where I got up on a high horse again, and bang, down. And that took a while to overcome.
Yeah.
But it's made me a better coach.
You're a failure, deemed a failure in the eyes of society. There is still a stigma around divorce when there really should not be.
Everything works, eventually. So why I have used this thing to delay moving careers when I wasn't happy, starting something that I wanted to do, starting a hobby that I don't think I'll be good at. Like this is my reminder to put myself out there. Go. So Rob, we're coming to the end of January and pretty much almost a month into most people's New Year's resolutions and a month since our 2022 review and 2023 plan. So how has it gone? How's the first month of this year been? Have you started any of the things we set out in that episode before?
Well, considering I've never been a cardio doer at all in my entire life, apart from back in my sprinting days, winter training, but you wouldn't really call that cardio because it's very specific, right? In the last month, I've probably done more cardio in frequency and volume than I've ever done in my training life since I stopped sprinting, which as a 40-year-old adult is shocking to say. There's no element of me that's proud of that because I should be looking after my goddamn self. So that's one thing. That's gone the right direction.
Did you ease into it? Or did you just go all hell for leather and realised this is hard?
So I did the proper research on what I need to do. I've read so many cool books on the subject because this is for a very specific thing, obviously. But I properly eased myself into it, doing zone 1 stuff only. But what normally happens is because I enjoy intensity and I enjoy working hard and I enjoy challenging myself, there's always that urge to go, just speed it up a little bit more. Go on. Chuck some intervals in at the end. All this stuff I'm not meant to be doing yet. There's still that urge there. But if I did that, you guarantee it'll kill me and I'll be like, I'm not doing that again. I didn't enjoy it. I'm not doing it. It's too hard. Don't want to do cardio.
You could say a Tabata is technically aerobic because even though the first one's a max sprint, it sort of becomes aerobic as she starts to fatigue, right? That's the rational argument.
Exactly. It's so bad because now I'm the algorithms change, so now I'm getting all sorts of aerobic and cardiovascular challenges. A geezer randomly just pops up on my TikTok explaining some tips about the 2K row. And I'm instantly like, it's not in my program. I don't need to do it. There's no benefit to this phase that I'm in of doing the 7K row. But then part of me is instantly like, I haven't done a 7K row in years. Maybe I should do a 7K row just as a little extra. So I'm getting excited over doing cardio stuff. I don't get it. It's a bit weird. I'm worried. But I'm making sure I'm keeping all my
I know your problem.
Stuff.
I know your problem.
Testosterone low, this one is.
Yeah, I know your problem. You're on TikTok. That's your problem.
Mate, I'm almost deleted it. Almost. Algorithm's so good.
I still can't get it.
Oh, you can't. You're so lucky. Like literally, you are lucky. It's so good that as soon as you think, right, I'm done with this. This is junk. It's wasting my time. The next time you go on it, the algorithm's completely changed and it's matching your thoughts on what you want to see. It's beyond genius. Beyond genius. So does it so better than any other platform does. Very smart.
But I see every day when I look at like podcast forums, like everyone banging about. I just started promoting my podcast on TikTok, and all of a sudden the views went up, and I'm like, but why? Why do I need to see this? It's like all the other algorithms are conspiring against me to make me feel bad that I can't get TikTok.
Yeah.
So if you could post some clips of this show onto your TikTok, that would be great.
That's a good shout, actually. That's what I need to do, yeah. Because I don't post on there anymore. I rarely post. I've just become a complete consumer again, which is not the reason I started it. But so we have to sort that out. But yeah, in terms of physical activity, my physical goals, making good strides towards it. In terms of my meditation goals, been meditating near enough every day. Can't remember what my other goals were right at this moment, but none that I've made any progress towards in January. Because I'm not perfect. I'm only human. I'm not going to nail every single thing every single day. this early on, because there's a lot of stuff that you need to build on the habits, you need to build on the systems that you're putting in. We just got to keep doing it, reviewing your progress and making plans. That's what it's all about.
I looked through mine and I realised that not all mine were things that I can't start in that first week.
Right.
So, like, obviously, my TMP therapy course starts next week.
Yeah.
Obviously, we had the talk to Chris Bravin about trying to get some TV roles. That's when I come back in the summer, trying to find a live venue to take this show as a studio show. Can't happen until at least June next year. But I did go through and I found, like, achieve a successful first intake of the coaching confidence course and release another, either a level 2, a graduate's program, or a low ticket option course.
Cool.
One of the things I mentioned, right? So obviously I'm midway through coaching confidence. I'm getting great feedback, which is good. But I've also, this week when Ellie's been away, I filmed, and I showed you beforehand, an entirety of a HIT personal training level 1 education course, which is going to be my low ticket placeholder. I didn't realize how fatiguing standing in front of a ring light for 6 hours a day for like 4 or 5 days in a row was.
Hey, presenting is hard.
Unbelievable.
Presentation is so all intensive,
No auto cue as well, which I think might actually make it better because I'm just talking around subjects. But it's like I have to go down, look at the slide, say a couple of points from the slide, stop, leave enough time to edit, which I'm worried about when I edit on Saturday. There's a few I might look down immediately. And then repeat, rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
So it's been challenging, but that's been good. That's the one I've done. Like, the only one I'm behind on is I did say it wouldn't be daily, despite calling it a YouTube daily journal. But also, when I said it wouldn't be daily, I didn't mean not start it until we have this conversation. But I have filmed stuff for it. I filmed stuff for it the other day when I went up the peak, and I met, and I haven't seen this video yet, but I met a 70-year-old man halfway up the peak who was hanging upside down on like monkey bars. And not only was he hanging upside down, he flew up. It wasn't like he struggled up and he could just hold himself there. He jumped up like he was 25.
Love it. That's so cool.
And I was sitting there and I was like, I want to say something to this guy. And like you do your usual thing where you kind of bottle it. You go, I'm not. He won't bother with me. He probably doesn't speak English anyway. And then I remembered that thing I did in Vietnam where I saw the World Cup winner for Australia in '99. And I was like, I didn't have the confidence to speak to him. Ellie did, and it turned out really good. So I went up and went, "Excuse me, sir, can I ask you a question?" And I had my camera with me. So it's not great. I'm not high production value. Like, I edited it to try and cut him in, or I cut people out. But I've got a video. It's now currently a short on my YouTube of me asking this guy what he does. And you know what? The best thing about it was his English isn't great, but it was good enough. And he was like, I was like, so how do you do that? Because most people at your age can't do that. And he goes, very easy, really. And I was like, yes, but I said, most people can't. What do you think your number one tip for success is? And he goes, have a healthy body. And I went, what's the thing that's going to get you a healthy body? He goes, he rubs his belly. He goes, strong level. And I'm like, abs? But people can't see him rubbing his belly, so it looks like I just put the words in his mouth. But get your abs strong. But but I came off and he told me it was his birthday next week.
Oh, wow.
And he wished me a happy Chinese New Year. He's a really, really nice fella.
So cool.
And he was there with his granddaughter who was like doing some sort of like Taekwondo stuff, and she had a most viciously evil looking face. I'm sure she isn't. I'm sure she's like a Taekwondo
Of course,
face.
Quite a competitive face.
But but that is my success ratio so far towards that. But before we get on to the main topic of the show, I do want to say something to you based off a top episode we had a couple of weeks ago. I did my first float tank.
Come on, I saw. And now you're completely enlightened, completely grounded.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to wear a Buddhist monk robe and shave my head tomorrow. But I was so pleasantly surprised, right? Like, remember we spoke about this the other day, and I was like, I told you about that time in the 15 minutes in the sauna when I was really, really anxious about just not having anything to do. And I'm very much a believer that people say they don't have time to meditate, probably need to meditate twice as long. So I was like, if I can't do 15 minutes without some sort of dopamine hit, I need to do an hour. So, but I was terrified because I was just like, I'm going to hate this. And then everyone says, and you said to me as well, right? Need 2 or 3. Like, you don't expect much from one. And I generally think if that is not expecting much from one, I'm really looking forward to next week because I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It's game changing, man.
It didn't feel like an hour. It didn't feel like an hour. And I remember like the first bit, I was sat there floating away, and I was worried about feeling claustrophobic, and that's what people have asked me about. And I closed my eyes, and it felt like, when you close your eyes, you feel like you're moving loads, but you're not. I look up, and I'm in the same spot. And then I turn off the light, and that was the game-changing moment. And it felt like, maybe like meditation, but like, when you're like, you're not asleep yet, but you're not awake either. Like, I don't think I fell asleep at any of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if I did. But I was in that half doze thing.
Yeah.
And for the first 10 minutes, I was almost like, not fighting it, but just sort of like trying to go, I'm going to get some answers. I'm going to clear my head. I'm going to come out with an idea. And I realized, no, my whole point is to not do that. Not even think about it. And ideas will come to me if they do. And if they don't worry. And like, it felt like I was like away for 5 minutes. Who knows how much time I actually passed. And then I came present again, realized where I was. And then maybe it was a bit longer, and then a bit longer, and then a bit longer. And by the end, I felt like I was properly relaxed. But one thing I wasn't prepared for. So I knew that if you had any cuts or scrapes, you put your petroleum jelly on it, and because otherwise it will hurt, right? So I had a blister for my hike in the morning, and I did that, and it was a bit sore, but not too bad, right? I didn't give the same love and attention to chafing. And after walking around chafing the back of my thighs in my, sorry listeners, in between my butt crack, and the reason why I made sure I told you about the butt crack is because you go in butt first.
Of course.
And I'm so glad I brought swimming shorts, because I went in, jumped out in so much pain, and I went, I'm putting the swimming shorts on. And it just took the edge off it a little bit.
Oh, wow.
But I loved it. And I bought 3 instead of 1. I went in to try 1. And I bought the intro package of 3, so I've got 2 more to go.
That's exactly what I did first time. You don't get enough done in that first one to satisfy your curiosity. There's so much more. You're like, no, need more. It's like your body and your brain knows there's something in this. We need to keep going. We can't just stop at 1. Unless you're the type of person who just has a terrible time of it, is extremely claustrophobic, gets salt in your eyes, just can't settle. In which case, again, it's a sign you probably fucking need it.
I felt like I really enjoyed it and I got a lot of benefit from it, but it felt to me like I just relaxed, which is great. If that's the case, it's worth it for that alone. But I'm sitting there and go, like, even if I didn't know all the stuff that you mentioned and things I've heard on Rogan and things that my mate James has said to me, like I was sitting there going like, well, I haven't got anything profound from it. So like, I probably just need to keep going and just waiting. Like I'm not expecting my life to change. Just to be able to have that bit, when you go for a walk and you come back with a good idea. I haven't had that yet. And I feel that I think I'll get, like, when I get properly relaxed into it, I reckon that stuff will come more.
100%.
And it'll give me my weekly break.
100%. And the other thing is, well, you've got to think, when's the last time that you took an hour to just relax with zero stimulation, zero dopamine hits, no one near you? Like, okay, and now it's kind of shocking that we have to find these experiences like sitting in a pitch dark body temperature saline tank, But obviously there's benefits.
It's mental.
Yeah.
But it's mental. Imagine if you went 15 years ago on Dragon's Den and go, I've got a salty pod and I want you to sit in it for an hour with no lights on, and we're going to charge you 100 quid, in this case 90 quid an hour to do it.
Yeah.
I'm like, everyone will be like, I'm out. Whereas now this has become like a global business thing.
Yeah.
And it shows you, it's an indictment of the way the world is. Because like, even if we, like for trainers that sort of look at sort of stress metrics, we look at HRV, we look at resting heart rate, we look at blood pressure. How many things affect blood pressure? Like sitting in a coffee shop is what people do to relax, but you're spiking some form of stress hormone because you're having a coffee. Or we're watching Netflix. Okay, it will be relaxing. You're not going to have major spikes in stress watching Netflix. But if you're watching a stressful show, you're going to get those little things. It's very rare you truly relax in today's world.
No, we don't.
Not
We
for that long.
really don't. So that's perfect. And again, that's not the only way to do it. You could, if you are that way inclined, if you've got the tools and the mindset and the environment to do so, you could recreate that. I'm not saying you create a float tank in your bathroom, but you could recreate the environment of as little stimulation as possible, an hour just to yourself in the form of meditation, because essentially that's what you're doing in the tank. You're just forced to, rather than consciously choosing to. That you could join a meditation class. It could be a case of getting out in the hills without your phone, safety permitting, obviously, just being away from the city, being away from the noise, the people, the chaos. Ask yourself, when's the last time you actually did that? Because that's a game changer. Every time I've been up in the hills, my God, you almost do forget the rest of the world exists for a little bit, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing, but you can't live up there. You can't stay there forever. You've got to come down at some point.
I also think sometimes I like this week I've had, and obviously I'm not saying stay in Thailand early, but because no one's been in the house, there's been times where I've come back and I've just literally sat on the sofa and I've just looked at the ceiling, and like that almost sounds like you're bored. I was like, I found so relaxed and like, very quickly, and I've just actually enjoyed my time. Like I started very much like the float tank. I started listening to those. You know that thing that's been going around Instagram that if you've got ADHD, listen to this little crap 10-second piece of music that goes all the senses. And like what a condescending piece. Sorry, but what a condescending piece of shit. That people think ADHD is just like, you just need to listen to this piece of music and you'll be cured. That's like cleaning a tabletop and telling someone with OCD that your problems have gone away. Like, fuck off. But I do quite like that sort of like. Is it ASMR? Is that the word where you got the music where you it feels like a surround sound in your headphones? So I listen to that and then I just take them off and look at the ceiling. And like I'm not doing anything, and I quite enjoy that. And
there's definite utility to these binaural beats, which doesn't necessarily, little Instagram clips. You're not listening to it for long enough. Most of these binaural beats you've got to have in your ears for at least 25 minutes. That's what people don't realise. So there's utility to that, but again, you've also got to look at the placebo effect. Sometimes I'm putting them in because there's ones that are more geared towards productivity, or there's ones more geared towards better sleep or more relaxation, and then things can get a little bit woo-woo as well, right? Because of course it is that whole industry's polluted with bollocks. But
do you think that's true though, or do you think that is a placebo
effect? I think
right?
That's then the placebo effect, right?
Yeah, like they're in the same track, but if I title them differently on YouTube, you'll watch them for different things.
Exactly.
Go, I'm getting this thing.
Exactly. And if you know what waves have which effect on your brain, then all you need to do is just look at the wavelength that you need, the frequency that you need. But it's so easy. It gets me sold into it. It gamifies the process. I go on my app, which look the artwork on it's incredible. The routine of going through it's incredible. Reading the stuff about it as you press play, and there's music playing in the background as well. Like I love it all. That's how I get it done. If I were to choose any other version, probably wouldn't work. Probably wouldn't get it done. But you have obviously got to take account for that placebo effect too. But the idea that a 4-second clip on Instagram would have any effect in any way, shape, or form is preposterous. Beyond preposterous.
Therapists going out of business left, right, and centre. Therapists going on strike because the music on Instagram has taken their careers.
Good Lord.
Just like what?
Man. Yeah.
So moving on to our main topic, we thought it would be a good thing to kind of like almost as a little bit of a follow up from our initial optimistic year in review post. Although we talked about how shit 2022 was, so it wasn't that optimistic. But talk about 5 successes we've had in our life, or like 3 to 5 successes we've had in our life, and 3 to 5 failures that we've had in our life.
Okay.
And I was saying I'll explain this why as we go through it, but I don't know about you, but I found this a really interesting and surprisingly difficult task.
Okay. Yeah.
I say surprisingly difficult was like the thing I thought would be easy was hard, and the thing I thought would be hard was easy. Yeah. So, do you want to start as like finish with the doom and gloom? Or do you want to finish with the success stories? Are we starting successes or are we starting failures?
I think the biggest lessons are going to come from the failures. So I think we do the success stories first.
I'm on exactly the same wavelength. How many have you got on your list?
I just did 3 of each.
So if I start then, because I've got a couple of extras.
You can get a little bit depressing. So I did 3 of each before I went, oh, shit. But it's all good.
So my first success story is probably the earliest one that I can probably think of. And although I'm sure I have things I can think of as a child when I remember it, but it's what we spoke about the other day, and that was walking the length of Wales.
Sweet.
Because it's not just about like walking the length of Wales that people are going to listen and goes, yeah, that's a success. That sounds impressive. And you'd be right. It was a hard thing, and it was one of the most brutally hard things I've ever done. But the roadblocks that came in the way and how this even event came to happen solidified this as like, it's almost like I knew it would be a success story that for some reason the universe / my idiocy tried to make it harder. They started to put things in the past. So it started off like how it came about. Me and my mate were in a pub in Aberystwyth. And in Aberystwyth, like, you know how you go for a beer and then you have a few beers and you get chatting and go, oh, let's have a few more stronger drinks. And you have like a vodka Coke or something like this. Well, in Aberystwyth, you used to get something called a gar, which was 4 vodka and any mixer for £3.50. So we're many gars deep, right? And we decide, should we walk the length of Wales? Right? And like, how many people have said stuff like this when they're drunk?
Yeah, of course.
And like, the most people would go, what a stupid idea, I'm not going to do something like that. And the fact that we actually shows you stuck by it, you know what, we're going to do this, is, I think, a big testament, because I knew that a lot of people wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So we get ourselves ready, and the night before, I'm going to go, there's a couple of months later, we get all the kit, and the night before, I'm going to stay at my mate's house who was doing this with me. And then we're going to drive up to Prestatyn, and then walk from Prestatyn, which is near Blackpool area, and go down towards Chepstow by Cardiff. And the night before, we get some stuff, got some massive Tesco's in Stratford. And we go there, and we get all the stuff, and I've had my bag on all day, right? And his mum goes, first impression, never met his mum before. She goes, can you take the trolley back? I'm like, yeah, sure thing. And I'm a 19-year-old lad, and I was like, what do you do when you're on a shopping trolley? You jump on the back and ride it, right? But I completely forgot about my backpack, which gave me a bit more of a counterbalance the other way. So the day before, I face plant on the car park.
Geez.
First impression was mum. I tear a massive gash in my knee, rip my trousers, my hiking trousers, to shreds. And that means I had to limp the first 4 days. We're looking 12 to 14 miles a day, and we're looking up mountains.
Oh.
So I almost took us about the race before we did it. And then halfway through, my first mate, sorry mate, I'm not friends anymore. We just lost contact, so I'm sorry that I'm calling you out here. I won't name him, but he bottled it. And he said that his chafing was too bad, so he wanted to call it a day halfway through. I'm sorry. I know chafing's uncomfortable. We've just spoken about how uncomfortable it is in a float tank. But you just couldn't hack the mental test of doing this.
Yeah.
So I continued on my own for 2 days. On my own, lost in the middle of Wales. Who knows what would have happened?
Jesus.
Had to jump over a bull. There shouldn't be bulls in Wales. These things aren't allowed to catch, but it was definitely a bull. And as I was going over a stile, he just stuck his head over, and I had to leap over this bull because he wasn't moving. I was like, "Excuse me, can you move, please?" He wasn't doing it. There was only one way to go, right? So I just had to leap. And then I recruited a mate who lived in Denbigh in Wales. Never done anything like this. He was a big party animal. I used to go out with at Aberystwyth. And he'd never done anything like this. So he brought this tiny little rucksack. So we got these, on his first day, we got some reeds. And we put the pans and things, attached it to his bag. And we're going through one of these fields, and also the pans are clanging away. And have you seen the film 28 Weeks Later? Not 28 days.
Yeah. 28 weeks.
You know the scene where Robert Carlyle's running through the field and all these zombies come over the hill? Imagine that scene, but with cows.
I think that's more scary.
I think they must have thought there was a cowbell on the side of his thing. So they're sprinting towards us, and there's like 50 of them. And we run, and we hide behind a bush, like a holly bush, and it gets up so its nose is touching my side. And it literally, I'm just still, hoping that he doesn't move forward. And it turns, I look at my went, leg it. So we run and we leg it. So we got through all that. And people think, oh, it's just walking. But me and my second mate I went through, we've never had a time where there's been a silent moment. We're very good at going back and forth. It's like if me and you did a hike, right? I don't think we'd end up having nothing to chat about. We did 12 miles in silence because you were just so mentally and physically drained.
Yeah.
And all we had left was half an Alpenbar. So we had a quarter of an Alpenbar each. And it kickstarted the conversation. More than any diet, what even the word I'm looking for, diet depletion that I've ever had. I've never known any small amount of food be soaked up like that in my life. So I think with that's probably the amount of things I put myself through and the amount of commitment I had to determined not to bottle this and finish it. It's been one of the biggest successes of my life. And it's something I look back on now when anything gets hard. look, I did that. I kept going. The odds were against me. I could have bailed when my mate bailed. I'm like, this is the thing. It gets me through future opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. Again, like it builds resilience. It builds a mindset. People might say, "Oh, it's just walking." Or go fucking do it then. There's no such thing as a flat multiple day route in this country. And even if there was, that could be tough enough. Like we don't do that anymore. We're creatures of convenience now. Most people don't even walk. How many people can't even get 3,000 steps in a day? It's shocking. So that's a huge achievement that you did that, man. And just you saying it makes you want to go and do it. I'm a sucker for this stuff at the moment for adventures,
mate. If you want to do, I would do. Well, there's two reasons why I would do the Office Dyke again. I'd also do Coast to Coast.
Okay.
But the reason why I like to do Office Dyke again, one more time, is me and my first mate were very much into pubs, and we liked our beer.
Okay.
I still like my beer, and we were going to do write the Office Dyke pub guide. So go down and we'll go to all the best pubs, and we're going to rank them.
Yeah.
And we're like rather than 5 stars, like 5 pints. So like food, atmosphere, drink selection, service, this kind of thing. Like almost like the pub guide, and then publish it. And then when that mate bailed on me, my other mate was a person that just had like rum and cokes, and I'm just like, I can't continue this thing. It doesn't work the same. No. So if you want to do a pub tour of Office Dyke and make up for lost time, I am keen. It would take about 12 days.
Yeah.
There's 187 miles, depending on which book you read. Somewhere between 177 and 187. Wow. And you will climb more styles than any other path in the world. Fun fact.
Does sound phenomenal, though. Coast to Coast sounds good. So you haven't done Coast to Coast yet, but you have.
No, I haven't. The only one I've done is Office Dyke.
Right.
And loads of big hikes here in Hong Kong. Yeah. They're all in one day. They're all in one day.
Got ya.
The Eight Immortals was hard. There's one called the Eight Immortals where it's super steep up. Dragon's Back is one here. It was super steep up, and then it's a ridge, flat ridge, and you come back down. But the Eight Immortals, you kind of go this brutal trek up, and then there's 8 peaks, and it's hours long, like 8 hours worth of hiking. And we're like, nah, I loved it. I thought it was the best view in Hong Kong, but I'm not doing that again.
No. Jesus.
What's your first one?
First one, I'll do the deeper ones later. The first one was a festival that used to be on a yearly basis in Essex, just outside of Chelmsford, by the name of Brownstock. And it started off as like a small family festival. They would get a DJ tent in for all the ravers. They'd have a stage for the bands. And each year it got bigger and bigger and bigger until they were getting some pretty phenomenal guests in. Dizzy Rascal headlined one year. The Darkness were on. Example was on one year. There was all sorts. Like it started getting bigger and bigger and very, very commercial. And sadly, no longer do they do it for multiple reasons. But we were always playing. My band, were always playing in the venues that the owners of the festival and promoters for the festival and presenters and other bands and all sorts used to go to. So we ended up kind of getting to know them. And because my band has never taken a single gig, song, recording session, rehearsal seriously ever in our lives, there became a bit of our reputation that we were fun guys, right? So we see all these local bands. You still see it now. You still see it with guys older than me. People taking it too seriously, way too seriously, that it's their art. And they're looking for label recognition and all these things that you do not want, right? And we've learned this, right? We way back, we nearly had a contract with Warner Brothers. Tim Burton was telling my guitarist how much he liked our stuff. Ridiculous, right? Anyone else would take that as well. Let's put that on our MySpace. Tim Burton said, well, who gives a fuck? It doesn't change anything, does it? So because we would always have fun at our gigs and we would try and get the crowd involved, we got reputation and we got our first slot on this Brownstock Festival, like the second or third year running of it, right? And we were really, really early. 2 years later, after starting our hip-hop covers band, which was even more fun and even more crowd-friendly and even more enjoyable from both our perspective and everyone else's perspective, because everyone knows all the hip-hop songs, we find ourselves sub-headlining on the Friday night. Our mate's band, who were also a phenomenal covers band, called Creme de Chev, look them up on Spotify, Creme de Chev, and YouTube, they're incredible. They were on before us, and we noticed this intensely large crowd because they do amazing covers. All with the frontman's got a ukulele on there. It's kind of like a little bit Weird Al Yankovic as well. They're phenomenal. Always go down a storm. And we're like, why are we on after these guys. This is ridiculous. They've owned the entire field, hundreds, if not thousands, watching them. And then there's a gap while they come off, we set up, we go on, and like the field's like emptied out a little bit. And I don't care. We've done gigs where we've played to the sound man, and that's it. I don't care. I'm on stage at night, this huge stage, all these lights, it's epic. I don't care. Within 2 songs of us starting, well over 1,000 people. Well over 1,000. And towards the end, it was difficult because it was pitch black outside in the crowd. Estimates are like in the thousands. I've got some photos. It's still one of the top 5 moments of my life. Us playing for 35 minutes, non-stop medley of rocked up hip-hop songs that everyone knows these songs. Whole crowd singing along, security singing along. The headline act after us is a guy called DJ Yoda that some people may or may not know. He's setting up his decks while we're playing. He's bopping his head along. He's rapping along. I'm like, this is it. This is the peak. This is the absolute peak. And it kind of turned out that it was. But I don't care. Like that, I got to do more than most bands will ever fucking do. This sheer amount of people watching us and singing along and dancing along and having an amazing time. If I ever talk about any gig, because obviously playing gigs and music is a big part of my life. If I ever talk about any gig, that's the peak. That's the top one by far. But it's also one of my top 5 life experiences. That was a huge, huge success. And we were still so grounded afterwards. Other people like would see that as their just the beginning. For us, that was like, this is it. This is the top. We've done it. This is the best thing we're ever going to do. So let's just enjoy it, which we did. We got some video footage somewhere.
Did you embrace it? Was there any nerves?
Oh, 100%. There's nerves going on every single time. There's nerves going on when we're just playing to the sound man. There's always those nerves. But we'll talk about nervousness a little bit later. I've got a good quote about nervousness. But but we enjoy it too much. That's the thing. And once you're seeing everyone else is enjoying it, you can just relax. You just got to do your job, which is entertain, which you've done hundreds and hundreds of times before because you play so many gigs and you rehearse tightly and you want it to be the best thing it can be. So we were able to just fully relax into it, and which made it more fun. We're mucking around more. There's not a minute of that entire set that we take seriously again either, because it's 3 white guys and 1 Chinese guys. 1 Chinese guy? It's not even a sentence. 1 Chinese guy doing a predominantly heavy black hip hop set. There's nothing to be taken seriously about it. But it's funny because now you see TikTok bands coming on doing their little hip hop covers, and we're like, we were doing that 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you know. But yeah.
Without at the risk of like almost maybe I don't know what your other 2 are, giving a bit of a spoiler away for one of your others. What was more nerve-wracking, getting on stage in front of 1,000 people playing your gig, or getting on stage in front of 100 odd people talking about testosterone for Paul Maltzing?
They're talking by far. Why?
Far.
Because there's more serious elements to it, which instantly I really had to make sure that I'm saying the right stuff. I had to articulate properly. There's a lot more to remember. I'd rehearsed a hell of a lot less than I'd ever done for any gig. And there's people, it is just you. The people aren't really involved with you at that time. So that would be something I would do next time, is how can I increase the crowd participation with this? Whereas with the gig, mate, if you're doing it right, you don't even have to say anything to the crowd. You don't have to say, clap along, jump, come closer. You don't have to do these things that lots of other bands do if the crowd's enjoying what you're doing. So if you do...
I suppose band, like, music is subjective. Obviously, if it's dead silence, you fucked up somewhere.
Yeah.
But music is subjective. Whereas when it comes to talking about stats of testosterone and all this kind of thing, there's a pressure to be right.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And that was it. And without blowing my own trumpet, my talk got voted for based on the title alone. So the guys wanted to hear it, so I had to make sure, well, I've got to deliver, really. So there was more pressure, way, way more pressure than there was with any gig ever. Yeah.
So my number 2, I'm going to say anytime, I know this is technically a cheat because it's more than one thing technically, but I think it's the same sort of thing. Anytime I've uprooted my life, I think in the same way that the length of Wales taught me when things get hard, you can push on. I think uprooting my life has told me no matter what you worry about and what you fear might happen or the worst case scenario, things tend to work out okay. Like things you worry about are really not that much of a concern. Like the first time I uprooted my life, I only went to Birmingham, and then the second time I uprooted my life, I moved over to London, right, to work in Shoreditch, and I couldn't afford, about. Let me tell you the story about me getting ready for that job. It was my dream job at the time. How things have changed, and I was just the week before I got the job offer. Bear in mind, I had to travel up to London twice for the interviews. But a week before I got the job offer, I was in a taxi on the way back from a night out. I was working technically 3 jobs at the time. So I had PT, I worked in a promo for a nightclub in the evening, and I worked as a butler for Hindus on the weekends to try and make ends meet. Really struggling. About a week before, thankfully I got my last interview out of the way, but the week before getting the offer, I went out night out, came back in a taxi, put my card in a machine to pay the taxi driver, get money out, and hit my overdraft limit. And I had to run away from this taxi. So then I get the job. I'm like, yes, this could be the end of this. And I go home, and I know this sounds like a failure, but it's like this isn't, because that's unfortunately happened way too often in my life. And I go home, and then I get an email from the person who was dealing with HR at the time saying, well, you'll need to set up a limited company. You'll need to have your pay for your insurance. You'll need to pay for another couple of things like first aid qualification. And I hadn't got the money. I'm like, I'm going to have to turn down this job. And I'd only just started dating Ellie at the time. And thankfully she went, I'll pay for them. We'd only been together like a month. So I'll pay for them. I know this is important to you. And she didn't even, I knew at the time she was thinking when he moves to London, he's going to break up with me. And she's still willing to pay for me to facilitate this. So I'll always be for her debt. And then when I did it, I couldn't afford to live in London. So I commuted from my parents' house, which technically was probably more than a rented flat, because it was like 900 quid a month in train fares going from Wolverhampton to London, 2.5 hours each way, 6 days a week to get there, which is brutal. And I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. But it proves that if you want something enough, it's the Richard Branson quote always sticks with me. If you get an amazing opportunity, say yes and find out how you'll do it later.
Yeah.
And then as I going back to what I said at the start, it proves that everything will be okay. I got there. I didn't have any time to look for flats. That's why it was about 2.5 months of commuting. And then I found a friend. Well, I was a friend of a client I had back in Wolverhampton who was like, well, you can stay with my cousin who lives in Acton Town. And I stayed on a sofa bed for a couple of weeks. And then I found a flat, which was a, illegally subletted council flat, I think, in Shoreditch, where I paid a sneaky Colombian in a back alley cash in hand every month. And it got me there, right? And then, what we're looking at now, 5-6 years later, I uproot my life 13 hours across the globe to live in Hong Kong. And while not as scary as you think that'd be more scary than moving to London, but it wasn't, because I was a different man at the time. I had more behind me. I wasn't it was scary, but I was more excited for that.
Yeah.
But I remember, you don't realize how much, when people say travel broadens your mind. And you don't realize how much it does until afterwards.
Right.
You think you realize in hindsight. I was one day just walking down the front in Hong Kong and went, I'm a different person than I was 2 years ago. And I think Hong Kong has a lot to do with it. So I think uprooting my life has been one of the biggest successes of my life.
That's cool.
And I
That's
think
cool.
everyone should.
I like that.
It.
I like that. That's a good one. I'll go with this one because it's on a similar theme, but it's not, and it's dark. The biggest success is that I let my failures and emotions and everything else, and how uprooted my life was without me having control of it, that I nearly cashed out. The success is that I didn't. The success is that I turned it around, that I realized what I was going through, that I built the skills and habits and the mindsets and the emotional control to move away from ever thinking about doing that again, to being where I am now, which is, whether good or bad, I'm here now. That's the biggest success, is that I could have caused a lot more pain than I was ever going through by, what does Jordan Peterson call it? A permanent solution to a temporary problem. So obviously that's one of my biggest ones. And it's something I've been pushed to talk about more, but I'm always reluctant to, because it can go one or two ways. Well, one of three ways, really. There's the people it will help. There's the people that just don't want to hear it and say stupid stuff like, well, you should have just jumped and whatever. Like Paul Moore gets that all the time. It's ridiculous. Who does that? Mate,
Really?
yeah, you should see it every time. It's Cliff video. Anytime he talks about it, the comments are horrendous. They just show the worst of humanity. And most of the time, he just, thank you, love you, hope you're doing all right. But then sometimes you'll see like that person who said it has got like a profile picture with their 2 kids in, and then he'll comment back saying that's not. He did a video on it the other day saying that's not okay. Like, what example does that set?
Do you think that's becoming more common? Like I know we said this the other week with the. I don't want to keep banging on about Andrew Tate, especially as it's maybe looking more like he might be guilty of stuff. But like, it's just the immediacy of people wanting him to be guilty, and I'm like, you just want this guy to go down, and for him to be guilty, other people have had to get hurt. Do you not care about these potential women that have gotten hurt? And I just think more people are like that now, where they see, like, I mean, I know this might be the third person you're about to say, but the other thing I tend to find that when people talk about these things, you get, especially as a bloke these days, and this disgusts me, but the amount of times where you'll get, sorry, I'm not saying all feminism is bad. I'm really, really not. I'm talking about the people, the small subsection of feminism where there is a anti-men rhetoric, where it's like, whoa, boo-hoo, you've had everything handed to you being a bloke, and now you have some struggles. If you can't handle yourself, maybe you should have jumped. Sort of attitude, which I think is absolutely
horrendous. Yeah. I've had this theory for a while. Obviously, it's not rooted in any sort of actual psychology or brain chemistry, and I'm reluctant to say it on the regular because too many people take offence to it for the wrong fucking reasons, which proves my point. The depression almost has this like ego behind it. The half the reason we don't reach out to people and half the reason we don't actually listen when someone's sharing their problems is because there's a part of our brain that's going, God, well, you have no idea how hard I've got it, and I've got to go through this, and I've got to go through this. So when you see someone doing that, and some people do it more publicly, some people are like, well, he thinks he's got it bad, I do, I've got this and this and this and this, and like some people just don't want to hear it. Some people like having that. Becomes part of their character, that they've got it worse off, whether that's true or not. But if that's your mindset, then yeah, of course you've got it worse off because you believe in your thoughts that are telling you that your life is really, really fucking bad when it's really not. Right? So there's that. That's the third part of it as well. There's people that it will help. There's people that will take offence because you've kind of highlighted their issues and they're not ready to accept that. And then there's the people that are just. Duncan Trussell said the world's a forest of cunts, really. So what can you do? You just got to accept that some people are. Yeah,
and that's you got so many people. I'm not just going to say blokes because I mean, like there's a lot of
women with this
having a hard time, but anxiety in women is also going up. Not at the same rates, not at the same level, but it is. The world is getting more anxious, and I feel that in a way where the difference is. So if anxiety is going up in women and anxiety is going up in men and depression is going up in men, why is it that there's more male suicide? Now, to a degree, we could say that, well, it's potentially like ego. People like it's the toxic masculinity. It's stiff upper lip. It's tough it out. Like, it's just get on with it. Okay, you could say that. But it could also be the fact that I could be wrong, and, I'm very happy to be wrong. But if somebody feels that they're going to get like lashed upon with just, you might as well do it, or boo-hoo, you've had everything handed to you comments, then people just then hide themselves even more because they know it's going to get backlash. I always come back to, and again, it's not a depression post, but it was we said this on the feminism thing. I don't want to make this a feminine podcast at all, but it highlights this sort of ethos. I did a post when with the horrendous incident happened to Sarah Everard about men need to do more to help women, and I think more men would if every time they didn't put up a post there was somebody to knock it and criticize it and say you did it wrong. You supported us in the wrong way. And the first comment I got was an ex-colleague of ours who said like, well, you put this video and then you put up a video where you were on a webinar with somebody who's not been nice to women. I was like, well, I didn't do his stuff. I didn't condone it. I didn't tag this person in the story going, greatest man alive. Like, and I think the same thing happens with mental health, where people are more maybe foolishly don't speak up because they're worried that it's actually going to get the wrong.
That's a huge reason why people don't. That's a huge reason why people don't do it. And the amount of posts I've done over the years, especially on International Men's Day, where there's always going to be backlash from a female is strange. The male suicide rate, obviously, it's like 1 in 4.
Is it 1 in 4?
I may have that wrong. I may be saying the wrong thing there. Whatever.
If it is, that's
I think it's 1 in 4.
The fact that we almost believe it, the fact that it's not hard.
Sorry,
that
I think it's like 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4 suicides are men. That's what I was looking for. 3 out of 4 suicides.
Okay,
are men.
even so,
right? So when you highlight this, there's also a backlash argument that says, well, the male suicide rate is higher, but more females actually attempt suicide, and men just choose the more brutal method. But that's not a positive argument. That doesn't detract from the fact that more men are going and doing this. If anything, that's trying to claw back. No, we own suicide. We own it. How dare you?
Yes, it's passive aggressive, isn't it? It's not. Well, what can we do to help bring anxiety down across the board? It's like we have it harder as women. I'm like, I don't give a fuck who has it harder. I don't want anyone to have it harder. And I 1,000% agree with that so much. And I do think. And I do think that I've said recently that I hate the term toxic masculinity. It means nothing. But where there is a grain of truth coming through some of this stuff is that I do think when women speak out, their friends are more, oh, look, come on here, let's have some glass of wine and some ice cream, let's look after you. They are more supportive. Where the traditional thing, bloke says, I'm a bit sad today. Here's our mate Dave. What a cunt, and which isn't bad. I'm not against banter. I'm not one of these people that says you shouldn't have banter in case it offends people. But I do think it's that it's not as commonplace.
No, not at all.
People
still not
openly talk about struggles.
Still not. One day, who knows? Maybe that's what we have to rely on with AI. Maybe it'll be AI can help us.
Going back to your point there, what like to make this a positive thing and to highlight the success of this. Why do you think you became the 1 in 4?
What, as in, why did I get to that point, or how did
if 3 out of 4 suicide attempts are, why did you get past this? Why were you not part of the statistics?
Because I had enough leverage to not do so. I had enough of awareness of the people that would be hurt. I had enough awareness of things I still wanted to do. I'm not talking about material things. And I'd thank God of the things I'd already done in terms of like some Paul Mort courses and other stuff as well. People I listened to, Jordan Peterson, etc. There was enough of that retained in my brain to highlight this is temporary. This isn't the way to go. This isn't the end. And like I say, in terms of leverage of knowing who I would hurt and how it would hurt them, man, that just created even more pain. But it's the biggest thing when it comes to people who cash out is they don't think of that. People say it's a selfish act, but it's not. It's at that moment in time, they think they're doing a selfless thing because they feel like a complete burden. That's the problem. So it's not. Yeah, in a way, it's selfish, but it's selfless as well.
Yeah, I also think suicide is a misunderstood thing because while there is, for every suicide attempt that is like that, there's someone that feels worthless, someone feels trapped, someone feels there's no way out. There are conditions. I read a great post after Chester from Linkin Park committed suicide, and he had various troubles. I'm not sure it was bipolar or schizophrenia, but he had something. And someone with a similar condition spoke out. Like one day, she woke up. And she was having a wonderful day. She got a coffee. She was at a beach house. She had everything she wanted. She looked out the sea. She was like, "This is great." And her brain went, "Jump out the window." And she obviously didn't do it. She stopped herself and she went, "No, why on earth would I do that?" But if someone is not in control of their mental faculties, it might not be depression. It's not, I'm sad, I'm going to go to a cliff and jump. It could be a more like an instant curiosity and bang, off you go. And you by the time you've realised what you've done, it's too late.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether this is a vestiges of ADHD, but my brain sometimes does stuff like that. Now, I will never touch wood, and Mum, if you're listening, don't worry, I will never do it because I'm too petrified of death and too much I want to do in my life. But like I have it where you go over a bridge and I don't know if you've ever had it. You go, what happens if I just jumped off that?
Maybe there's a name for
I'm looking over I'm on a skyscraper and I'm like, what happens if I just leaped off the side? And I'll never do it. But imagine if someone didn't have that part of their brain to stop. They could just do. And I think when we label suicide as selfish, we don't have the complete picture.
Mate, 100%. What you're talking about there's a name for it. It's the call of the void, where some people think there is a natural suicidal ideation in a certain amount of people, which again could be wrongly wired neurons, mismatched brain chemistry. Who knows? They don't actually know. But there's so many physical emotions we'd end up feeling that we don't actually know what it is or how to necessarily deal with it. So they reckon that it's more to do with this heightened anxiety, and the anxiety decisions is right. Let's stop doing the thing that's causing this anxiety. Of which there's two options. One is to move away from the edge. The other is to go over the edge, because then you're no longer standing on the edge. There's so many weird things about it. But it was such a weird thing to read about. I'll have to dig up the stuff when I got the time. But yeah, the call of the void. It's like I say, some people won't have that filter to then go, no, I'm not going to do that. Some people it's too fucking late. Already over, you know.
Yeah. Going on to my next one. Every one of mine has it's not less about a success of, like, some of them are successes that have happened in my life, but they all have a lesson of what they've actually led me to have in my life. So the next one is another sort of sneaky combined one, but it's my first results that gave me pride with the clients, and my own first diet.
Come on.
So my first result gave me pride. It didn't come naturally to me, getting results for people. I'm going to throw out a guy's name here, shout out to him, because we love shout outs in the show. And that's a guy called Adam Wright, who was the #1 results producing trainer one year where we used to work, right? And I'm sure he runs a group, the Barn Boot Camp. Follow him on social media, and he runs a great sort of group training gym. But he was self-professed at the time, not a great trainer. But he had a system, and he had a gift of the gab, and everyone got the same thing, but he was very good at it. And he got so many more results than me. And I didn't have this. I had shiny object syndrome, and I had to work hard. I feel in everything I've had to work hard to get something. And some things I've stuck out to be good at, but a lot of things have gone by the wayside because I didn't see, not an instant gratification. I'm not that kind of guy, but just like, it just wasn't getting anywhere. I felt like I was hitting my head against a brick wall. And that's something that I worked hard for that didn't come naturally, that now kickstarted, like, I can do this. And we are here 12 years later where I mentor other people to do it. And my first diet was, again, showing that I could practice what I can preach, but also the ability to be patient and delay gratification, which is something that I think everyone should learn more now, especially more often now. So I try to do it every couple of years for this reason, is get shredded to do this, because it teaches me about my clients, about empathy. We spoke about this in previous episodes. But the ability to delay gratification for me was huge, and to know what I could always push myself further than I think I can. There's a point where I've hit a wall where you've probably had it when you've gone photo shoot lean, where you can see your cheekbones, your ears all of a sudden look way bigger than they should do. Your feet hurt because you haven't got enough body fat on your feet anymore, so it hurts to take steps, and yet you keep going. And I think that teaches me more than anything ever has in my life.
Yeah, I get you. I get that. It's funny that you say that as your third one, because it's exactly the same here. Exactly the same.
Really
Client result. But not so much my own first diet, because there was it was a learning. Okay, it was a great success because it was a big learning curve for me. Because I'd never been anywhere near that sort of leanness before, ever. Through not quite knowing what to do, through not really having the balls to go through with it, and not really having the knowledge and the education. But then when you combine all those things, amazing things can happen. But I did not get as lean as I probably could have at the same time. But the third one for me is the client results, the mind-blowing client results that I've had over the years, including my first, biggest, most mind-blowing one, which was whilst I was at UP, Nick lost 52 kilos in 45 weeks. And that blew my mind in terms of what people can do. And it's similar to you. It was something I was worried about. I was getting to that point where I was like, I haven't got any results. I'm like, maybe I'm not meant for this place. Maybe I'm not right. But it's just a case of patience and trust in the process, and knowing that you're doing the right thing and that you are looking at every possible angle. And suddenly, once you're doing that and you're keeping people accountable and giving them the service they've paid for, amazing things can happen. And this guy, it still blows my mind when I see the photos now. Absolutely blows my mind that this geezer did it without moaning once. Like, pretty much, without sounding too dramatic, but it's true. It's saved his life. He was a hunt.
Did you get the thing that most coaches do, where they kind of they age at the first one? When you get the first one, like 6 or 7 come almost at once after that.
Yeah.
And I think there's an element of like, you get excited. I remember I couldn't not look at my phone. I'm like, this is amazing. And I got a result before that was posted on Nick, our former boss's page. There was a girl called Emma going to shape for a wedding. And that kind of gave me a bit of confidence, but it wasn't the same. I think my first guy to put on muscle and get a 6-pack, because it was, I could relate to that desire.
Yeah,
right? Like, I think a guy needs to get a guy sub 10 before they start to gain confidence. But you learn in that last 4 weeks of like how much, when someone's on it, how much you can, like, because you're excited, how much you could really keep people more accountable and how much you actually need to communicate with them. So you kind of, you step up your game for a little while. And then you fall back into some bad habits, and it's always the way. I think everyone does it. And the best trainers are the people that can keep that going.
Definitely. But yeah, massively so. And it's a success because it's the positive impact that has put on someone else's life that is only going to spiral onto other people and continuously do so is phenomenal, you know? Like, that's a huge fucking success. Yeah, man, it's funny. I'm glad we both had those. That's our number 3. I think that's a good one.
My last one is Soppy, and it's getting engaged. And I think this, and it's also a personal thing, and what it teaches me as well. Like I said, you mentioned earlier on about me being with Ellie a month and her paying for my first aid and insurance to get me to my job in a job that took me halfway across the country, that she thought I might break up with her before I go. And I'm just like the wonderful selflessness of this woman never ceases to amaze me. But like I think I spoke about this in previous episodes, but if I'm not, this is probably the darkest, most personal bit of the show that I've done. Is that I've always, a lot of the reason why I got into the gym, and a lot of the reason why I saw Triple H as the big sort of role model to getting in shape, was I saw this person come out on stage at the Royal Rumble and everyone was captivated by him, and he had a physique. So I went, so the physique will get the attention and the attention will come onto me, because I was someone who, like, only child, never really was massively popular in school, went through various phases of bullying, and had a constant thing of sort of like, as a kid, friendship groups kind of getting bored of me, relationships being dumped by relationships with girlfriends getting bored of me. And, even now we've had an issue I'm not going to say on air right now, because I still, by the way, still don't know about that situation, of constant things where friends I'm just not as valued to them as other people are. And that always has played on my psyche, always, still to this day. And then to sit there and say, I've been with Ellie like 9 years and we've gotten closer and this person truly has my back through thick and thin. It's something that, yes, I've got friends I've had for life that I still think have got my back, but I've never really felt that in the same way. And so the big success is tying that amazing woman down. But the small success of this is I've never planned a day in my life that worked so fucking well. So I was always wanting to do it, and I was getting very, I'd say like, just the thought of, I don't like big purchases because I've never been great with my money. So the thought of spending over £1,000 on a wedding ring has scared me. So engagement ring. So I didn't do it for ages. And then she got a really bad ear infection. I had to spend a couple of nights in hospital, and it terrified me. I'm getting this done. So in 2 weeks, I've got a range of friends, sort something out. And my game was to propose on the big wheel in Hong Kong. And then I had a secret house party ready for her. And like literally the night before I was going to do it, she was like, so what I was like, I need a reason to get her out the house and dressed up without letting her know there's something special going on for a random Saturday. So I had this voucher my client got me for Christmas. So I was like, I'll take her out for that dinner. I said, dress up. I'm going to spoil her this weekend. And Ellie was always good at making these jokes of like, oh, you better not be Like you better not be posting me like in a football match, or you better not post me doing this. And she randomly went, "You better not be posting me using your client's voucher," which technically is true. I wasn't, but by the time the proposal happened, that's the only thing that would have happened that day. All the festivities were happening afterwards. So like, fuck. So I panicked and I went to Pandora and got like a little like pair of earrings. There's like to throw her off the scent.
Yeah.
So I went and I got some flowers and I gave the flowers to the guys that own the big wheel. And I said, give her this and the chocolates and the champagne as she comes off. Had a photographer ready to take photos of us down the foot of Hong Kong. And then, so I got to this table and I handed her this. I said I'd spoil you. And she almost kind of got excited. And then I opened the thing and it was earrings. Like, oh, that's nice. I'm like, yes. I can turn this around. I got there, literally on the morning. It was so foggy. And then this is the morning, this is earlier on in the day, I've gone back in time. She goes, you sure you want to do the big wheel? It's too foggy. I'm not going to say anything. I'm like, yes, I booked it. So I get on there and she's like looking at the view. She's getting all excited. I'm like, babe, I want to say something to you. Can you shut up? But said it. She said yes. I come off. Everyone gives a round of applause. We have the photo shoot. And I was like, I've got booked a rooftop bar for us. And I thought she'll never buy this. I was like, let's go home first. I'm sure you want to call your mum. And then we had all of her friends there. We had the Lion King playing when she came in, Circle of Life playing because she loves the Lion King. I was like, I've never had something go down so well. So like that was an organisational success as well as a lifetime success.
Pressure, fellas, you need to step up. That's how you do it. That's setting the bar. That's setting the standard, isn't it?
Well, now I'm just going to make sure the wedding day sets the bar. Let's see if I get a stag do plans. My original stag do plan I might not be planning anymore, so I've got to go to plan number 2. But on to the things we think are going to be the big. We have failures. I have 4.
Okay.
How many?
I'll go 3. I'll go 3 again.
Shall I start again so we can do it alternating? My number 1 is a reminder to myself, because it's not exactly one moment of a failure, but it's something that I think it's a constant mini failure that always reoccurs, that I always have to remind myself. And that is not backing myself enough at various stages of my life. When I left our last job, I didn't back myself for mentorship. It took myself 18 months to do it. The podcast, I kept trying to get it off the ground and didn't back myself that it would work. And we spoke about earlier, uprooting my life. Everything works eventually. So why I have used this thing to delay moving careers when I wasn't happy, starting something that I wanted to do, starting a hobby that I don't think I'll be good at. This is my reminder to put myself out there. Go and do the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class because I'm 30 and that's what everyone that trains does. Go and do like this something that's out the comfort zone. And that's my sort of first one.
Yeah, I like that. Mate, BJJ has become the new CrossFit in terms of the people who do it don't shut the fuck up about it. And now there's people going, well, people have been doing it for 8 years now. Well, I was doing it before it was cool. No. No, you weren't. But
have you heard I'm a vegan carnivore now?
Mate, let's just do it. Let's just try every single fad out there, including BJJ. And I call it a fad because the amount of people that would sign up to it and then won't continue it, like most things. So it becomes the fad for guys to try. But I still want to try it. I do want to try it. Speaking of, even though I completed it, and I will return and face it again, the fan dance, I class that as a failure because there were moments where it showed how wildly underprepared I was physically and mentally for a challenge that was way out of my comfort zone, where I forgot how to kind of deal with that. To the point where there were moments, technically I've quit, but when you're standing halfway up a mountain and the car park and the finish line is the other side of the mountain, can you ever really quit? You've still got to fucking get over the mountain. So there's more lessons that I've learned from it. Still now, little things come back to me and create new lessons. It's incredible. But it taught me the value of the importance of preparation. Like as much as a buzzword, a buzz phrase of if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. That's fucking true. It's beyond fucking true. You can't wing something like that. And the fact that I let my emotions get the better of me on this toughest part of the walk, where I was halfway up a mountain on my own in the middle of a storm, cursing the gods and the mountain, swearing at the mountain as well. Literally stood there on a step, both fingers up, going, "Fuck you!" and people laughing behind me. It actually happened. So, to lose that, have that lack of emotional control, and lose the bigger picture that I've just got to keep moving one step at a time. I'm not dead. My legs haven't broken; they just hurt because I've climbed a fucking mountain. Now I'm climbing it a second time. So, class it as a failure because it showed where the weaknesses were. But that can only add to my strengths now going forward. So, is it ever really a failure?
To reframe that, to make you feel that because you, like you're saying, like, well, could I really have quit if I needed to get over that mountain anyway? When I was in Boy Scouts, I did one of those abseiling towers, was 50 feet high in the air. When I realized when I first realized I was scared of heights, and I got up there, and it's the same thing, right? I'm hanging off the edge. I've got to get down to the bottom anyway. The quickest way would be to abseil.
Yeah,
I took the ladder. So, and on that note, I'll give you another thing that might make you feel better. I think I've already told this story. So, I went recently over Christmas. I went to Howlong Bay, and I will tell all my friends that I have kayaked in Howlong Bay. What the true story is me and Ellie got on this kayak. It took about 15 minutes to turn around. By that point, my hips had seized up so badly that I was probably in the most discomfort I've ever had sitting down. And we both went, we're going back on the boat. I could not stick it out. I've never been so uncomfortable.
Man, kayaking's bad. It's killer. Absolute killer.
It's hard. Mate. I didn't realise how hard it was to sit in that position and control for your hip flexors and be upright. There's no back support. Like, if I was in one of those kayaks where you put your feet in, I think I would have been easier because at least I can rest on the back pad and take the pressure from hip flexors. But this was like a surfboard with a paddle. And it was so hard. So hard. My second one is, I would class this is my first breakup. I would argue this is probably the lowest point of my life. I think last year was one of the hardest points of my life, but I think I'm more emotionally mature to handle it and find the wins. I wasn't emotionally ready to find the wins in a breakup when I was 19. And I don't think I've ever felt so depressed. And I almost without, like, if Ellie listens to this and like thinks that I'm pawning after an ex-girlfriend, I almost put part of this as a success. And it's also the reason why I think love at first sight exists, but I don't think it's necessarily a sign of a long-lasting relationship. And the reason why I almost put it as success is I've mentioned this before when we talked about process, and I remember the thing about Johnny Cassell with the 5 out of 10 thing we spoke about on the Tinder Trap, right? Episode. And I've never been that great at chatting up women. And like, it's always been sort of like I've had to work really, really hard and just sort of like, I've always felt like I've gotten by with the skin of my teeth when I've managed to. And I remember I was on a bit of a roll when I went to university. And like, I couldn't find my mates. I was in the queue for the student union, and I was like, I ended up like learning how to talk to women because I had to, right? But I was on a bit of a roll but it was always with like people I was like, okay, like, you know, that didn't bother me that much. And I remember walking into this event with my friends, and she was like a friend of a friend. And I looked across the room. I'll never had it. I went, Jesus Christ. Like, I want to speak to that girl. I've never been so compelled to speak to anybody. And the night goes by, and I'm a bit scared, and I don't do it. And at the end of the night, I did it. And like I remember getting with her, walking her home, and like making the conscious, like I've never got a start of a relationship so right. I got home and I walked to a door, and I gave her a kiss and I left. I didn't even take the offer to come in. And then the next time I allowed her to wait because of something she was worried about. Like I nailed it like a blooming pro. And we were together like 10 months. And then it just sort of ended out the blue. Like, you know, like things do. University, you want to do different things in different parts of the country, things happen. And I could not handle it. Because it was like, I was so captivated by this person within half a second of seeing her that I didn't. I just thought I just saw most of my life, and it was in a way one of my biggest successes. One, because the actual seeing someone I like that much and actually managing to get a relation with that person was success, but also a success in my life of like I got through that in the sense of I spent way too long, very embarrassing 8 months of my life being miserable, the miserable friend that no one wanted to take out because I just was that person that was mopey all the time. But like it taught me, it was the first time I really hit a wall, and I learned how I could pick myself up. But also, like, and I'll say it now. I was going to end the show with this, but like, I found it really hard to write the failures because, like successes, like you said, are like the end of a chapter of a book, right? They are the things like you go, oh, cool, we did that. Whereas failures, in hindsight, you look back on and go, well, actually, these led to something better, and all of these have. And without Lisa, there isn't an Ellie. And if I went and took back my breakup, or I did it myself to save me the heartache, or whatever other scenarios this could have gone, I've just put getting engaged as one of my successes. That wouldn't have happened. I would go back and I would take the breakup all over again.
It's so funny that you put that as your second one, because mine's near enough exactly the same. What the fuck?
Isn't it amazing how many guys, if you listen to this, especially if you listen to this on YouTube, comment below how many of these are similar for you too. And let's see how many guys actually have the same problems. We talked about people not speaking up. Let's all speak up together. Comment below if you have the same problems, because you realise we're all very similar, more similar than you think.
Yeah, and this is why it's important for men to talk. Because you then realise, shit, I'm not a unique, special unicorn. I've got the same problems everyone else has got. This is how we deal with it together. So mine wasn't my first breakup, but it was the breakdown and subsequent breakup of my marriage. But at the same time, so the first thing that starts going through your head is you're a failure, deemed a failure in the eyes of society. There is still a stigma around divorce when there really should not be. There really should not be. Some people aren't just meant to be long-term, right? So the biggest struggle I had, obviously, a complete lack of emotional control, no idea of the future, which creates severe anxiety, obviously. There's anger, resentment, bitterness, not just at me, not just at her, but other people as well. All these things come rushing in, right? And which led to, some dark decisions later down the line. But again, it took me a little while. And I really have Paul Mort to thank with one question that he asked me on the first phone call I ever had with him. What is the gift? What's the gift from this? Now I'm deep in the middle of it at that moment in time, and the ego's taken over. Gift? What do you mean gift? It's the worst thing he's ever fucking had. What are you talking about? Didn't say that out loud, thank God, because he wouldn't have cared. So.
And then you stopped masturbating and all things fell
into place. Then I got
place.
out of the cold shower, put some clothes on.
But yeah,
put on some Teddy Pendergrass, and the rest is history. But the thing is, it's exactly as you've just said, Nat. Is it really failure, or is it just part of the journey? The journey can't all be ups. It can't be. So what's that? Okay, the gifts, some of which are personal, private, but the fact is that I'm here now. This is how I know it's part of the journey, because I'm here now. If it wasn't part of the journey, if it was the end, then I wouldn't be here. So it's all part of it. Okay, things might have gone down, some things have gone up, but it doesn't mean that it's now a constant route down either. It's all part of the journey which you're in more control of than you think, but life is always going to throw events at you. You can sit there and think you're not going to have these things thrown at you, and then you get a nasty slap in the face when it does happen, and you'll be even more ill-prepared for it. Therefore, your reaction, your emotional control will be even worse when it happens. But it's all part of the journey, So again, in a way, it was a failure, because it wasn't horrible. It certainly wasn't a horrible marriage in the slightest. And but in a way, the post events are part of the successes as well, which leads to other things. So it's funny.
And if you look at like the things you've done now, so much of your business, so much of the episodes that we've had, so much like the ability you had to talk on testosterone and personal development, like how much of your career since has been related to personal development. Personal development that you probably went into because you were going through a divorce and you were in a hole to then start looking at some of the things to make you feel better.
Exactly.
Like, those things wouldn't be there. You'd be in that bubble. You'd be comfortable.
Yeah. You could say beforehand, I was just dipping my toes in. I was just playing around with personal development, not really ever committing. And then after that, it really, really hit home. Fuck, got to take this stuff seriously, and thank fuck I have, you know?
My next one is, it's interesting you say this. It's I'm not going to secret marriage. I haven't been divorced, but you mentioned obviously like life will throw things at you. You think you're riding high, and something will come and slap you in the face. And I've had a number of those in my life. I will allude to a potential lawsuit threat without going into too much detail last year, which floored me. And I won't, obviously for the reasons that the reasons why it came in the first place, discuss that any further. But that really hit me hard. That something in my eyes so small, on some ways, in me speaking about hardships and struggles. So we spoke about earlier on, right? We spoke about hardships and struggles and how more men should speak out, and how I could potentially end up in a court for this. Scared me more than my life could ever imagine. But I'm going to go with another example with it, so I don't get into trouble with that territory. And that is, I mentored. I won't necessarily name him, although I'm sure he's talked about it in the past. I mentored about a year after those first lot of results came, and that junior year ended. I mentored one of the trainers. Felt really, really confident. I was riding high. I was like, I'm a really good PT. I'm ready to be a mentor. And I started well. First 4 weeks, he got about 8 weeks worth of results. He was looking incredible. I was like, this is gonna be unreal. And all of a sudden, he starts getting softer. And at the time, I was like, oh, what's going on? We looked at his meal plan, realizing he was trying to make protein pastes to curb cravings, and his food volume was low. So we sorted his food volume out, started getting better, and then started to creep. He was like, is everything going right? Is nothing wrong? No, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong. And then he came to me and said, Simon, messaged me at 3 o'clock in the morning with a confession. That's the title of the email, saying that I've been having like 10,000 calorie binges, listing all the stuff that he's been having. And this guy had real emotional issues with food that I don't think he'll mind me talking about, even though I do name him, because he's very open and spoken about his own struggles and his own podcasts and podcasts he's had with other people. He's a good coach now, really good coach. And but that hit me such a failure, because then I went to him and was like, well, we've got two options. I think you should not do the shoot, but if you're going to do the shoot, we're going to have to push hard. So he decided to push. And he was, when we did like a protein sparing modified fast, and he was so nervous that he would overeat on his refeeds that he decided to do about a kilo of vegetables, and he didn't ship for a week. And that taught me, again, going back, that taught me so much. From a practical sense, it taught me, make sure people send you their refeeds before they have them, like in terms of what's in the food diary. It taught me to maybe ask better questions so I can find out what's going on and see the signs. And it taught me, if I had a suspicion about someone's emotional reaction to food, just stick to your guns and don't drive them into a further hole. And this was not all my fault. I at the time, I was so self-critical. I was like, I'm a rubbish coach. What's going on? Looking back now, I don't think any coach at the time would have been able to help that guy. He was in the whole
place,
stuff that was out of my remit, and he's gone and seen therapists and all sorts about this, right? But at the time, I found it a huge failure, and I think that was the thing. That was where I got up on a high horse again, and bang, down, and that took a while to overcome. Yeah. But it's made me a better coach.
Mate, that's it, and it's like asking questions. That's such a key thing. Ask questions of not just of your client, but of yourself as well. And that's the same for any realm, really. We don't ask these world-class questions. We just self-criticize, and therefore you're not seeing the forest for the trees, you know? That's an important one. That's a good one, man. I like that. I'm certain I could think of a few examples like that as well, you know? My final one, we spoke about this earlier, is that last year there were two opportunities for me to fly to the other side of the world with a flight booked that I didn't do in the end. And there's multiple reasons for that. One is I didn't work hard enough to make sure my stability out there would be ensured. I did not work hard enough. Two, I kept putting it off rather than actually using that deadline as something to work towards, it just got closer and closer and closer. And I'm like, oh, shit, I better do something about this, didn't I? Oh, I'll have to push it further back. Rather than going, right, this is it, the burn your ships type attitude. This is the date I'm going. And the third one was, which I'm slowly coming to realise, is was it something I actually want to do? Or am I my motive slightly skewed because of what other people are doing, what other people may or may not think, what it proves to other people rather than what it proves to myself? So still something I'm considering doing, just not the same place anymore.
Where was
so
it? And
originally,
where you
this
thinking
sounds so
now?
fucking petty as well. Originally, it was going to be Bali, right? 3 months in Bali, that was the plan. Airbnb looked incredible. Could do my remote work out there as well, all sorts, right? But the problem I've had since is every fucker I know has gone there. And my social media is completely full of people showing the reality of what these, tourist hotspots are like over there at the moment. And it just really doesn't appeal to me the same anymore. To the point where that's where I start questioning myself. What was my original reason for choosing there, really? And there's other things behind it as well. But then that starts...
No sex before marriage coming soon.
Yeah, that coming in as well, eh? Jesus, so if there's any red flag going off to say don't go to Bali, that's the one. So now I have other ideas that appeal to me a hell of a lot more, that excite me a hell of a lot more than this excited me. This created pressure, which if I'd listened and asked the right questions, should have been that little warning sign saying this might not be the right thing for you. But I see it as a failure because it was a big life-changing event. Would have been a big life-changing event that I just kept putting off to the back of my mind rather than using it as an actual tangible target to work towards.
Have you been to this side of the world? Have you been?
Yeah, I've been there. I've been to Bali before once. Yeah.
Where are you thinking now? Or was this too soon to ask? Ooh, interesting.
I don't want to say in case all the Instagrammers start going over there.
Yeah, okay, cool. I would say not to ask some Instagrammers in the first place, but Thailand and Vietnam are worth it. Of course. I would go and live in Hoi An for 3 months. That would be unbelievable. But mate, pit stop in Hong Kong until June. You have a place to stay. Boom. So as long as it doesn't coincide with my parents' trip, otherwise you have to get a hotel. Yeah. But if it's outside of that time, close to the June time, mate, you can always come around here. So I'll finish on my last one because I know you've got your call very short. And I'm deliberately finished with this one because I think this is something what not people would consider a failure. It's a lot of people that maybe people see as an end of something rather than the start of something new. And I think this is an open-ended one because we say about failures, and I'm getting a little bit now of the successes maybe that are, or some successes that have come from this. But I don't think I've got anywhere near the things that I will look at in 5 years and say, this is why I'm glad it's happened. I'm just scratching the surface of that. And I'll see if you can probably work out what it was. If I said to you that I wouldn't be mentoring coaches without it, I wouldn't be mentoring coaches online without it, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you without it. It's being fired.
Yeah, mate.
Now, I'm not going to go into the intricacies of being fired for the same reason why I'm not going to go into my my legal letter last year. But what I will say, regardless whether I think it was a good decision on their part, bad decision on their part, right or wrong, it was something that I was putting off for a long time, taking the initiative to do myself. And it happened to me, and it wasn't always easy. It's never nice to be told you're fired. Even if you wanted to leave, it always is a bit of a, well, why did this happen to me? What was I doing wrong ethos? But I had an initial wave of like relief, followed by that, but that's a bad thing. And while it's not been an easy couple of years, I think the future will be much brighter now with the possibilities and the things I may have in the pipeline that would not have been possible if I hadn't been fired. I have had podcast episodes with Luke Lehman, Jordan Shallow, Kasim Hansen, Chris Van Vliet, Simon Miller, Chris Baven from BBC, Pat Davidson, Jordan Shallow, Nick Daniel, Robb McGeary. And a few really exciting people to come. That like people that I hadn't spoken to before. Paul Standall, friend of mine now, never ever spoke to him before. Came on the podcast. Rob McGeary, right? Invite to a wedding. I only met you once this summer, ever. And now I speak to you every single week. Like, that is a new, very, very close friends that has come from being fired.
It's all part of the journey. Part of the journey. And it goes back to that question. What's the gift? What's the gift in every single possible situation? You may not recognize it at first. You may not be willing to accept it at first. It may not reveal itself until later down the line. But if you don't look for it, you never flipping find it. How many people wear that sort of event as a badge of honor and talk about it for decades and decades without realizing the things in between that it essentially helped create, in a way, you know?
And always, it also gives perspective, right? Like, for all the things that have happened, positive and negative, that I can say through where we used to work. And I don't want to go into it because there's a lot of good things. I'm the man I am today. I'm the trainer I am today. And I wouldn't have had the opportunity to move to Hong Kong. In the same way you spoke about your travel, ironically, in your last one. Like, I don't think I would have had the guts to move around the world. It was always something I wanted to do. And I was very envious of my cousin for working on cruise ships and just doing it before we had responsibilities. And if I didn't have an opportunity, I probably wouldn't have done it off my own back. So I will thank Ultimate Performance to the end of the earth for giving me the opportunity. Could I have done it on my own? Yes. Would I have done it on my own? Probably not. And I think that's something that's I'm glad that was the case.
No, I get that.
I would do it. I may not have been there as long, but I would have done it again.
100%.
And I wouldn't be able to say that a year ago. I would not have been able to say that a year ago. I spoke so positively about the experience.
No, I like it, man. Like it.
So, on that note, we've now got things to work on. We've now not going to be scared of failure because it's going to be that necessary thing. And you now shouldn't be scared of your accountant that you're going to speak to now, because it's all part of the journey, my friend.
Sometimes, even as an adult, you need to be told off and asked, "What the fuck are you doing, Rob?" to be able to make progress on this journey that we're on.
Yes. So, closing statement. We're gonna post copywriting today, because that's what you're posting. You're promoting a lot at the moment. Or go and buy some copywriting stuff off Rob, please, because he deserves it. Tell us about Copyright Domination.
So basically, with Copy Domination, which you'll find me on, I actually have a website for this one as well, copydomination.com. But it's a little bit old, and all the social media sites is either Copy Domination or the Copy Dom, just to be a bit kinky. And what I do there is I help you create converting and captivating emails using stories and human psychology to boost your conversion rate and turn your email subscribers into paying clients. I now have an elevator pitch. Why are you?
Oh, I fucking love that. I'm gonna do a plug today as well. As I've been saying to Rob, I've been filming a level 1 for my gym, HIT Personal Training. We're going to be doing a level 1 and level 2, a reverse dieting course, and a few other courses that aren't going to be done by me, but by the amazing coaches at the gym. Level 1, which will be done by me, should be releasing probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So if you're wanting to have some education, you're a coach, want to get better results with your clients, and maybe you're not ready to jump on the full coaching confidence course yet, this is a great intro for that. For people in Hong Kong, we are also doing a one-day seminar in about 3 weeks' time, going over how to build training programs and to teach you every single way of training your clients hard, including by training you hard. So if you're a sucker for punishment and you want to come and learn how to train hands-on and you're in Hong Kong or want to travel to Hong Kong, drop me a message at Kingsley Dutton. Subscribe to us on YouTube so you can comment about the things and how many of these are the same. And Rob, I will chat to you next week.
My man.